Well, hello everyone, and now it's time to get started with some content, and I had hoped to do maybe some general Libertarian Party tutorials at first, but issues come up, as issues are wont to do. And an issue that is particularly near and dear to my heart has entered the news radar, and it's a political issue, so of course there's all kinds of hot points and flashpoints. And I'm going to try to handle this in an even-handed manner. But I have a concern, and it's mostly an intra-party concern, and that is the idea of political violence. I've spoken out about this quite a bit, about the issue of political violence and some of the rhetoric that I see going on. If you happen to point out that the political violence isn't just coming from one sector, you're accused of making a false equivalency. That this side isn't as bad as this side, or that side, or this side. And I just don't think that is anywhere we even need to go. Do we have to, when someone's been assaulted, really get down to, well, we're not going to talk about, or we can excuse the person, that got punched in the arm because they didn't get punched in the face. You're not going to make a punch in the face equivalent to a punch in the arm, are you? They are both assault, and they're both worthy of attention, and I don't think bringing them to attention is making any kind of equivalency. And I'm not making any claim of equivalency. But I do think the authoritarian right, and there certainly is an authoritarian right, is violent. But the authoritarian left is violent as well. And at least within Libertarian Party circles, I've seen a reluctance to speak out against the authoritarian left. I think we're all very safe in pointing out the authoritarian right. We all do that with each other. We pat each other on the back, and I'm totally in favor of this, send out a press release from the National Party inviting racist and white nationalists, to get the hell out, not let the door hit them or the good Lord split them. And I absolutely agree with that. But our silence, or apparent silence, and it seems that way to me, on the violence from the far left is deeply troubling to me. So I talk about it quite a bit. And again, I'm not making an equivalency. I am talking where I think some talking needs to be done because there's a lot of silence there. I, in no uncertain terms, condemn the violence of the far right. It is no secret that my opinion of ethno-nationalism and the seeds of the alt-right, and, we need a white homeland and all that crap, that, my opinions on that are very, very well known. But just because the far left opposes that does not make them my friend. The enemy of my enemy is not necessarily my friend. Just because someone is against the far right does not mean they are for something necessarily good. Keep screwing this line up. I think I need some Mountain Dew. So I want to talk about some of the violence on the left. And this was an incident involving Blaire White. And now me even saying that name, here's the first instance. We have gotten into such a game of demonizing people and not being able to hear something from somebody if we disagree with them on some issues. And I noticed when I brought this up, when I brought up that Blaire White had been assaulted, some of my more left-leaning friends would immediately just go to attack Blaire White. And I said, I like Blaire. I watch Blaire. I watch left videos. I watch a ton of videos. In fact, I watch very few libertarian videos because I want to learn new things and I want to hear opinions from things that I might not necessarily agree with. And it doesn't mean I have to agree with everything. But so they led into an attack on Blaire White. And I said, well, let's just say for the sake of argument that Blaire White is just a terrible person. So that still doesn't mean she didn't get assaulted, so let's just put that aside. And if your first reaction when you hear someone is assaulted to say, well, I don't like that person, I'm going to ask you to keep this in mind when you hear that, or if even that you're doing it. When somebody has something bad happen to them, are they asking for it? We wouldn't accept that in other circumstances. Someone might be little intoxicated and not having their guard up and walking through a neighborhood where it might not be particularly safe and they get assaulted, or a woman, she gets raped. Do we blame her or do we blame the assailant? I think we know the answer there. So I think it's completely unacceptable unless Blaire White was throwing punches at people to say that she was asking for it or somehow deserve it. Now, I'll also say that the facts aren't all out on this, and if something comes out that would revise my opinion, I expect I'm going to be doing that a lot on this channel. But what really got me going is, I watched the video, and maybe I'm just, I'm very trusting, and I believe most things that I see on face value, and at times I've been burned by that. But this seemed pretty convincing to me. I'll put a link to Blaire's video if you're not aware of it in the, what do they call it, the low bar, or whatever, in the show notes, or I'm used to doing podcasts, obviously. So I'll put a link to that if you would like to watch it. But basically the thing was, she was doing somewhat of a provocateur social experiment where she put on a Trump hat and decided to walk through different areas of Hollywood. And the first area she walked to was a predominantly LGBT area, and actually there was no reaction. They were just like, hey, you want to walk around with a Trump hat? Okay. Everyone was friendly and really nothing happened. And it was actually quite pleasant. I really, really enjoyed that segment. So then they decided to go, and I believe it was in downtown, excuse me, because I'm not from California. And they said, and when I say they, it's Blaire and her boyfriend Joey. And when they went out there, they had said, well, I bet you we have a different reaction out there. And this is going to become important in a minute. So when they go out there, it turns out there was a Trump rally going on. And Blaire says that she didn't realize it was going on. Let's talk about that again in a second, because I don't think that's entirely relevant. But let's just say that that's what she said. And while they walked up to the Trump rally, somebody flicked the hat off of Joey's head. So right there, that's unwanted touching of a person in their property, and flicked it to the ground. And I don't know whether the guy who flicked it or somebody else started stomping on it, which is destruction of personal property. And Blaire went to get the hat back, and whether on purpose or accidentally, this person stomped on her hand and actually broke off one of her acrylic fingernails. And that is really painful. I have had that happen. And, and the police were standing right there, and they didn't really intervene. There looked like maybe there was some words exchanged, but nothing like you would think. And I think she actually handled it very well. I know how painful that is. And if someone stomped on my hand, I think I'd freak a bit out. So they started walking back home, back down the street, and decided to do a little exit video, the way YouTubers do, where she's just standing in front of the camera, kind of like this, and saying what happened and what happened with their experiment. And as she's talking, somebody walks by and throws an unknown liquid in her face and runs off. Now, all of this is going to become back important. I'm just setting it up for you. And when it happened, neither she or Joey knew what that was. And you can tell Blaire is freaked out. I know what I would immediately think. Is this acid? That's what I would think immediately. And, and you start to work that up in your mind, right? So she starts going, oh my God, my eyes are burning. What is it? What is it? And I can see the panic. I can see the panic, and you can see that Joey's trying to keep cool, and the wheels are turning in his head. Does he chase after this person, or does he stay here and take care of his girlfriend? Which he did. And it turned out it was probably alcohol. It smelled like alcohol, and it looked maybe some kind of wine, because it had like a red tint to it. So I posted this and said, so look, I said, the left is violent too. Political violence is not okay. Political violence is never okay. No matter what side it's on. Political violence is not okay. It's not okay to punch a Nazi when the Nazi has not committed any acts of physical aggression against you. Words get words. Words don't get fists. The minute we start resorting to that, that is going to be the only language that anyone knows. And I know that can be tough. But I'm somewhat of a free speech purist, though I'm not sure anyone consistently is, but I certainly try to be. And on that line, I stand fast. Words do not get fists or stomped hands. Hats don't get stomped hands. Can you imagine, a woman getting assaulted for a certain article of clothing, but it's okay because it was a Trump hat? And I'm no fan of Trump. So now to go back to a friend of mine had pointed out that Snopes had done an analysis on this incident. And I read it, And that's what really inspired me to do this video. I'll put a link to the Snopes article as well. And it actually infuriated me. I know a lot of people criticize Snopes, but I found them to be pretty decent. I think they're a little left biased, but I generally trust Snopes. But when I read this article, I was incensed because I do not think this angle would have happened if this was, say, a feminist rally or a left celebrity that had gotten assaulted by Trump supporters in this way. I just do not think the narrative would have been the same. And this is what they said. And they also said that the cops said this too. And if the cops said this, shame on them. But they said that Blaire instigated the confrontation by wearing a Trump hat first, which again, she was doing a social experiment and being provocative. There's no doubt about it. But they weren't being mouthy or anything. They were just walking around with the hat on, at least as far as I can tell, unless somebody has some other footage where it shows them being mouthy. It looked to me like they were just walking around. So the police said that they initiated the attack or provoked the attack by wearing the Trump hat and crossing over a line that was meant to keep the protesters from everyone else. If there was a line, if she crossed over a line, shouldn't have done that. Okay, say she crossed over a line. That's not provoking an attack. Are these animals? Nobody on this side is animals. I do not believe that just because someone walked over a line, well, that's it. All hell breaks loose. You asked for it. You walked down that alley in the wrong clothing. You asked for it. No, we wouldn't accept that. And I don't accept that here. I don't know if she crossed the police line or not. Apparently, Blaire's doing a live stream tomorrow to address some of this, and I'd be very curious if she'd answer these questions. And after that stream, if I have to modify my opinion some, I'll do that. So let's just say she crossed the line. That does not justify assault. And I actually don't think there needs to be these safe spaces. And I'm not saying that entirely sarcastically, because I do believe there's a time and a place for groups of like interests or whatever to meet amongst themselves. But I mean in general public discourse, I think that those dividing lines need to be not a last resort, but something where it really looks like violence is imminent or there's been threats. If you see this protest, there really wasn't anything going on. So I don't believe in restricting people's freedom of movement and freedom of speech, to keep them absolutely separate when there isn't a present danger. So whatever, let's say she crossed the line. That does not justify assault. And I didn't see the police intervening in the assault whatsoever, and that is completely unacceptable. Again, there might be footage in where they did it, but from what I've seen, they did not. So on that, that's also what Snopes said. Then they said that when she was doing the exit video, that yes, she got liquid on her face, but it was unclear whether it was staged. What happened to listen and believe? This woman had something thrown on her face. Was it staged? I don't know. But I know I'm not going to immediately jump to that conclusion. And I don't think we would, not even jump to that conclusion, slyly insinuate it. Yeah, she got something thrown on her, but, maybe she did it herself. Could be. But I don't think that's the way we should be evaluating claims. And I think perhaps the more even-handed way would be, there's always a possibility that this was faked. But if it wasn't, this was a clear assault. And just imagine having a foreign substance thrown on your face. I mean, Blaire's beautiful. And not that I think that anyone who isn't beautiful would worry about their face too. But, the other ladies out there, I think will understand. We're like, oh my God, something on our face. That's just horrifying, and her poor boyfriend. So I just wanted to speak about this because there is violence on the left. And I really think the Libertarian Party needs to step up and start condemning that just as much as we rightly condemn the authoritarian right violence. And I think we should give the same invitation to the authoritarian left that we gave to the authoritarian right. Both of these extreme ideologies are anti-liberty and Just because, you know, the boot's on the right foot doesn't make it worse than the boot on the left foot. And it doesn't require an equivalency. The only equivalency that's required is that it's violence. And political violence is not okay. Political violence is not acceptable. Oh, one other thing. I don't know if this was Snopes. I think it was Snopes, but forgive me if I'm wrong. One of the other commentators said this is why they thought perhaps it was staged. Blaire and Joey went home and they were talking on the video about how they were planning to go another area and joked, I bet we get a different reaction there. And they're like, see, that's because they knew they would, because they set it up. Listen, if you're going to be slick enough to set up something, you're going to be slick enough not to admit you were setting up something on the camera before. To me, this just seemed like a very extemporaneous recording of their activities. They were like, hey, you know, and they seemed a bit nervous. I'd be nervous. I wouldn't go near any of these debates, and I shouldn't be scared in my own country to be able to go out to political debates and have my voice heard, but I wouldn't go out. I wouldn't go out. Okay, I'm back. And this is actually my third try at this last section. And because it's my third try, I was like, screw it, I'm wearing my Liberty spikes. That's it. I'm doing it. Maybe that will be the good luck charm. First time it turned out that for some reason my camera only records 20 minutes at a time. Gotta fix that. So I was in mid-lather. I was in mid-rant. And you could tell by the way this weird jump cut, right? And it cut off. Okay. So then I redid the whole thing. And I think I even got into a better lather that time. I mean, I had the furrowed eyebrows and everything. And you know what? Then for some reason my camera wasn't focused. So I had this great audio with this really blurry image. So let's see if it'll work this time. And I hear my dogs running upstairs because I'm in the basement and I hear my birds screaming. This is quite interesting. So where I was at, and now I'm going to forget half of the great stuff I said, but where I was at is where I was saying that in today's climate, I wouldn't go out to political demonstrations or political protests because I would be scared. I'd be scared of saying my opinion and getting pepper sprayed in the face or getting punched by anything, because I'm all over the place with my views. You can't put me into any kind of a box. I have a lot of sympathies with the social issues that are brought up, and I think there are some great points there. But what we do today is we put people in these boxes. You know, we say they're a Nazi, and it's okay to punch a Nazi. No, it's not okay to punch a Nazi. Or someone goes, oh, they're just a snowflake. They're just a social justice warrior. So we don't have to pay attention to, you laugh at them. Or, you saw what happened in Charlottesville. That poor girl got ran over on the streets. But on the other side, you had a guy assaulted with a metal bike lock to his head and was bleeding all over the place. That's attempted murder. In Charlottesville, they happened to be successful bastards with their attempted murder. And with the bike lock, they just happen to be more incompetent at their attempted murder. But it doesn't at all mean that there is not deadly violence. There is enough deadly violence to go around, and we have to stand against this. And I know some of the apologetic, which goes, well, Nazi rhetoric, or white supremacist rhetoric, or this hyper-nationalistic rhetoric will lead to eventually to violence against people. And that history has shown that. Well, you want to know what? Far left ideology has shown that too. Communism and socialism have killed millions. Fascism as well. So you can't do pre-crime. You can't go, well, this will lead to this. So before it gets there, we're just gonna violently assault it now. There is no society or liberty that can survive that. Liberty cannot live in that. I've said before, and I'll say this a bunch of times. Again, it's another religious analogy. If you've watched the C.S. Lewis movie, The Lion, Witch, and the Wardrobe, where you say Aslan is not a tame lion. Liberty is not a tame lion. There are risks. It's wild and wonderful and beautiful and free and risky. And that is really the only soil on which liberty can blossom. You can be perfectly safe or you can be perfectly free. But you don't meet words with fists. When words are taken off the table, then guns are put on the table. When words are taken away, then violence is the only means of expression that people have. And